When you are flying on an IFR flight plan, there is a tendency to feel that ATC is totally responsible for your separation from other aircraft. While ATC does provide separation service, you also have a big role to play in this responsibility. In fact, your role begins when you're preparing for an IFR departure and moving around the airport. Let's say you requested an intersection departure, or ground control may even have sent you to an intersection when you asked for taxi clearance. Then, when you contact the tower for takeoff, the controller may not have noticed that you are at an intersection rather than at the approach end as he would normally expect. In fact, in low visibility or at night, he may not even be able to see you at that intersection. If he thinks you are at the approach end, he might clear you into position on the runway just after a landing airplane crosses the threshold, setting up a collision on the runway. This is not a good thing, but you can help avoid it by doing as the AIM suggests. Anytime you're calling for takeoff clearance from any place other than the very end of the runway, tell the controller exactly where you are. For example, you could say, Dulles Tower, Cessna 359er Echo Sierra at the intersection of Yankee 2 and runway 19er right, ready for departure. And by the way, if ground control assigns an intersection that you don't think gives you enough room for a safe takeoff, tell them. You don't have to accept an intersection departure. If you're in doubt as to the adequacy of the runway length remaining, just ask the controller. He has the figures handy. Now, we're all in agreement that it's a good idea to keep aircraft from getting too close to each other, especially in the air. And as you know, anytime you are in visual conditions, you share the role with ATC in providing separation from IFR airplanes. But here's what may surprise you. Anytime you are in visual conditions, even if you are on an IFR flight plan, you are solely responsible for separation from VFR aircraft. True, ATC does frequently provide you with traffic advisories, but that is on a workload permitting basis only. So it's strictly up to you to miss all those VFR airplanes out there. So when you pop out of the clouds, start looking out the windows for other airplanes. If you're climbing or descending, make sure you can see what's in front of and under you. If you need to, you can make small right and left banks, just as you do during a VFR flight. And anytime you are in visual conditions, use your best scanning technique. From your VFR training, you know that the best way to scan is to scan the sky in short intervals, using about 10-degree sectors, and pausing in each sector for at least a second. This makes best use of the narrow, sharp focal area of the eye. And because our brains are already trained to scan from left to right, that's the way we read, you may find it easier to start from the left and work to the right. By the way, it really helps in avoiding other traffic if you make your own airplane as visible as possible. So as you approach the airport area, turn on your landing lights and your taxi lights. And double check that your strobe is on, just in case you turned it off to eliminate the distraction while you were in the clouds. Now, sometimes you may hear an old-timer say that he never climbs or descends on an airway center line because that's where everybody else is. Well, that's not a good idea when you're IFR, because ATC is counting on you to be on the airway center line to keep you separated from other IFR traffic. Since you and other IFR traffic are the only ones that will be using those airways in the clouds, you'll want to be where ATC expects you to be. So, in your goal of avoiding close encounters of the unpleasant kind, count on ATC when you're in the clouds. But then, when the clouds part, get those eyeballs out of the cockpit.